For more reaction to today's verdict, we are joined by former Bulger associate Shea, attorney Anthony Cardinale, who is representing some Bulger victims, and Boston Herald columnist Peter Gelzinis. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Well, Shea, I was talking to you earlier on the radio. You were self-confessed. You ran Whitey Bulger's South Boston drug operation. You did 12 years in jail. You didn't know he was an informant. And you said to me today that you were kind of sad today. Why?
Well, for me personally, growing up in South Boston and looking at Whitey Bulger at that time, in that era, he was a mythological, iconic individual. And a kid coming from the projects, not having much, looked up to a guy like that because there was so much around him in that sense of crime. And I eventually associated myself with the older guys that were associates of his. And eventually, you know, I became one of them. And
but why is it sad? He was convicted.
I get that, and you know what? It's a good thing that he was convicted. But for me, it's two emotions going at once. It's one, when I think about as a kid, and as I get older, I think about it with disgust. So, you know, it's split down the middle, and emotions are pulling me back and forth. But that said, the good thing that's come out of this is that it's ended. He's been convicted, and you know, everyone can move on now in their life, and that's what I'm doing in my life, and trying to make it better now.
Anthony Cardinale, 31 out of 32 counts convicted, so the government has to be pleased. On the other hand, you were just listening to Hank Brennan, and they're taking credit for basically the no finding in the Deborah Davis case. They're taking credit for the fact that there were 7 in all not proved murders. Should they be credited with that? And is that a good thing that they cast doubt on the government's version, the credibility of the FBI at the time?
First of all, when you lose 31 out of 32, it's hard to say, you know, that there was any kind of effect on that defense they put up. So you're getting a lot of defense lawyer spin as far as, you know, what they came away with. They have to claim some kind of victory, and I dare say that if we ever do find out about the Debbie Davis murder, it'll probably be 11-1 to convict him. One person held out. That's why it was not proven. As far as the early murders are concerned, those were events that took place at a time when Bulger really wasn't the head of the clan, so to speak. He wasn't the head of the Winter Hill Gang. He was just one of the guys, and there wasn't a lot of corroborative testimony. It came just from Moderano. So to me, if you could have 100 murder counts. If you lose one, you've lost. You've got a life sentence. You know, it's that last one you got to worry about. So when you lose 11 out of 19, that's not a winning formula.
Peter, you've been writing about this, I don't know how long, maybe 30 years. Is there a headline out of this? I mean, not a literal, but something that you come away with.
I think everything about him in this case is there's too much tendency for hyperbole. You know, this was supposed to be the trial of the century. There was this huge run-up to it, and it ends today with nobody really quite satisfied. I mean, I think when you listen to Tommy Donahue outside, you know, you get the sense that nobody, you know, in a perfect world, he would have been found guilty of everything, and this would have been, you know, somebody's idea of justice. But the government is a factor in this, and throughout the trial was a kind of defendant. And the idea that, you know, you don't come away, Tony's absolutely right. I mean, he was overwhelmingly guilty, but it wasn't a cakewalk. You know, it wasn't a clean slate. It didn't end cleanly. And even, you know, even finding him, you know, the idea of, you know, he was out there for 16 years. Could he have been brought back a lot sooner? Sure. You know, I think that there are all these questions that still remain. You know, the deals that were cut, the people who were never charged. It's not a satisfying situation. I think, as both these gentlemen said, you know, there's a sense of, I'm glad it's over. You know, I wouldn't have wanted to go on any longer. It got to be a very wearying situation for us in the media covering it, I think, because, you know, the testimony is so I mean, it's graphic in places, but in total, it's just deadening. You know, it's just an awful kind of you know, life is cheap and
well,
just a tough thing.
You were part of that, Red, and when you were listening to Flemmy and Martirano and Kevin Weeks talking about being killing machines and realizing you were part of that. I mean, you did time.
Absolutely, yes.
But when you think back, you said there's a big difference between being, you know, a kid on the street or a punk on the street and an adult now. Do you feel responsible? Do you feel like, hey, you could have been on trial with them?
Well, this is very true. I could have been on trial with them, possibly, if I had not gotten indicted when I did. I think that's what saved me. That sentence and that indictment actually saved me. You know, today marks the anniversary, this past weekend, and today marks the anniversary of when I did get indicted. And in that that day of this month and day, August 12th, Whitey Bulger article saying, is he canary or is he smart? Obviously, we found out that he was canary throughout the years and all the information that's come from the FBI and his files and stuff like that. So that said, not only that, it's my birthday today. I mean, so it's so full circle for me right now. You know, I'm just so glad that I don't live that life no more. I'm out of that life. And as far as the murders go, that was prior to my time entering into the crew and becoming a part of all of that.
I think the other thing, though, is, you know, if the trial reinforced anything, it's the fact that he was never a romantic figure. You know, I mean, my community, Southie, is still living in the shadow of the disease he spread. I mean, drugs are a huge situation here. And I think, yeah, there may be a small pocket of people who want to believe somehow that, you know, there would have been some kind of order on the street if he was still there. But those people are far and few between, even in Southie now.
Anthony, there's still a matter of this $822,000 was found stuffed in the wall in the Santa
Monica. And
Monica.
the ring, apparently, he wants to get back.
And the ring, the ring that Chris
body.
Nyland gave him, an NHL ring that Chris Nyland gave him. You are representing Julie Dahmers in this case. You'd like to have some of that money, and Whitey said, well, I'd like to see some of the money go to the family of Tommy Donahue, or excuse me.
He's got no say, first of all, and that was just a hollow, nonsensical gesture that he had his lawyers put up.
But where does that stand? Because the government wants to keep it for themselves.
Well, the point is, though, that he got up and made some grandstand announcement, knowing that he couldn't possibly win the forfeiture issue anyway. So it was really a meaningless thing, pandering to the victims and pandering to the press. Typical, and it's every step of the way of their defense. That's what they've done. So it was just complete, utter nonsense. And because when it came time to pull the trigger on it, he demanded that they actually go through a forfeiture proceeding, because he's trying to claim that the dates on the money, you know, were later than when he went away in '94, and therefore they can't prove it's illegal money, and he wants to keep it. So he's not giving up that claim, and everything that little grandstand pandering they did it was just that's all it was. It was an act.
Well, what are the chances you're going to be able to get your hands on?
Well, the interesting thing is going to be a fight now between the government and myself, because my position is that the government was responsible for him being able to make that money. And in a court of law, and the equities are weighed, my client as a victim, and one of the counts I was very glad to see that they found Bulger guilty of was the extortion of my client. She's a victim. She went to federal court. We got a judgment. We executed the judgment. We levied the judgment. And we put a lien on the money that before Bulger hit Boston, the minute he was arrested. So we have an effective lien on there, and we're going to have to fight it out. And ultimately, a judge is going to determine who has a better right to that money, the government or my client.
Quickly, Peter, will there be any other indictments? Patrick Ney, anybody else?
Well, you know, his name's been mentioned. I don't know. I mean, it remains to be seen. Obviously, there are people. You know, there's part of that dissatisfaction today is about that. Is about the people that probably whose names were all over the trial, but you know, have yet to answer for stuff.
As a result of Bulger's rat defense. I'm not a rat, but all I want to do is rat everybody up.
Red, Shea, Anthony Cardinale, and Peter Gelzinis.
Thanks
so much for coming. All right, that is it for this special Greater Boston. For continuing coverage of the Bulger verdict, stay tuned to 89.7 WGBH Radio, WGBHnews.org, and we'll have more on Greater Boston tomorrow. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.